I used to live like an emotional meteorologist. I spent my days trying to forecast storms that, most of the time, didn't even exist. If something had a 1% chance of going wrong, my brain treated it like 99%. There was a period when I lost several nights of sleep over a simple meeting. It wasn't technical insecurity. I had studied, prepared, done everything right, but my mind insisted on manufacturing chaos. What if the computer freezes? What if someone interrupts me? What if everyone finds it boring? I wasn't suffering from reality. I was suffering from possibilities. The truth is, I was exhausted from managing this mental power grid that was constantly short-circuiting. In that half-desperate state, I stumbled across the writings of ancient thinkers, and one of them, Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, hit me straight in the chest with a phrase so simple it almost felt childish. Some things are up to us, others are not. My first reaction? It sounded too basic, like something your grandmother would say, but the sentence kept ringing in my head like an alarm that refused to shut off. I started observing my own habits like a researcher watching a tiny animal in a glass tank, and what I discovered was kind of embarrassing. I was spending almost all my energy on things I could never control. Other people's opinions, their moods, random events, unpredictable variables. Meanwhile, the things that actually belong to me, my actions, my choices, my preparation, were getting whatever scraps of attention were left. The turning point came when I found a metaphor, different from the classic archer one, but carrying the same spirit. I pictured a surfer. His job isn't to guarantee that the wave will be perfect. That doesn't exist. The wave can break wrong, lose power, close too fast. His only real job is to train his balance, position his body, paddle at the right moment. Once he catches the wave, the rest is no longer his to command. And that's when it clicked. I had been trying to control the ocean instead of focusing on my surfboard. I didn't become a stoic master overnight, but something shifted. When the bus was late, instead of switching to complain about everything mode, I started thinking, okay, I can't make the driver go faster, but I can choose how to use this time. When I delivered a project, my thoughts stopped being, I hope they approve it, and became, I did my best with what was within my reach. It's a process. I still sleep, but today I carry an internal filter, my little stoic superpower, always asking, is this mine to hold? If the answer is no, I let it go. And once I started releasing what was never mine to begin with, I realized that most of my problems were just extra weight I had chosen to carry for no reason at all. Virtue, reputation. For a long time, I had an invisible job, the general manager of my own digital storefront. My social media profile was basically a carefully lit catalog. Every photo had a strategic angle. Every caption was polished to sound smart, interesting, or at least socially acceptable. I monitored views as if they were some kind of thermometer measuring my relevance on Earth. It was ridiculous. I wasn't building a life. I was setting up a stage and praying no one would touch the backdrop. And the name of this illusion? Reputation. It took me a while to understand, but trying to control what others think of you is like trying to fix your reflection by pulling on the mirror. Impossible and exhausting. The Stoics were warning us about this 2000 years ago. Your reputation is not yours. It only exists inside other people's minds, mixed with their experiences, traumas, biases, and expectations. It's a mosaic you don't get to arrange. You can be kind, honest, well-intentioned, and still someone may simply dislike you. No amount of personal branding strategy will change that. I realized I was spending all my energy polishing a facade that collapsed with a single offhanded comment. Meanwhile, the me behind the facade was weak, insecure, and hollow. It was through reading the Stoics that I found the alternative. Character. Virtue. I know, it sounds like a word pulled from an old sermon. But in practice, the Stoics talked about virtue the way you talk about tools. useful, concrete things you rely on to build a solid inner structure. And there were 4 main tools: practical wisdom, knowing what's essential and what's useless; courage, doing what's right even when it's uncomfortable; self-mastery, choosing our actions instead of reacting on impulse; and the last one, justice, which is treating others with integrity and respect. And the wild part, these virtues don't work separately. You can't be courageous and unjust, or wise and reckless. It's a complete kit, a foundation of stone rather than a house of cards. Difference between reputation and character became even clearer when I learned about a Roman statesman named Helvidius Priscus. The emperor at the time threatened to kill him if he showed up in the Senate and spoke his mind. The easy path would have been to stay silent, protect his status, save his own skin, but Priscus chose the opposite. He basically told the emperor, "You do your part and I will do mine. If yours is to kill me, mine is to keep my integrity and die without trembling." This man wasn't defending a personal brand, he was defending his essence. No one remembers the one who stayed quiet to please the ruler, but Priscus crossed the centuries, because character has real weight and reputation is wind. That story broke me. While he faced death for his values, I was spiraling because one of my posts didn't get enough likes. The irony hit me like a slap. I didn't delete my social media, but I stopped being a mirror. It became just a board, a place where I put what matters to me without trying to manipulate interpretations. Now the question is no longer, what will people think of me? It has become, does this align with the person I want to be? Is it just? Is it courageous? Is it honest? In the end, reputation is what others say when you leave the room. Character is who you are when the room is empty. Reputation is fun, character is structured, and that's what the Stoics taught me to strengthen, the part that doesn't break. Anger and anxiety. It was almost midnight on a Thursday. I was already in that shutting down for the day mode when my computer chimed. A message had arrived, the kind you read and immediately feel your body temperature rise. And of course, it was addressed not only to me, but also to a handful of higher-ups who, ideally, would never even know I existed. Instantly, my chest tightened, as if someone had pressed the low battery button on my nervous system, and my first impulse was that classic internal catastrophe, opening my reply box and drafting a counterattack worthy of a courtroom drama, the kind that destroys the other person and destroys you in the process. That was the old version of me, not a person, but a walking remote control. Anyone who knew which button to push could switch me into anger, defensiveness, or anxiety. I was tired of being controlled by circumstances, so I decided to build my own emotional emergency kit, inspired by the Stoics, a manual designed to be used right in the eye of the storm. The first rule is as simple as it is painful to apply. Stop. Separate the event from the interpretation. The Stoics repeated this like a mantra. It's not what happens that harms you, it's what you think about what happens. The message I received wasn't an insult. It was just text, a handful of pixels on a screen. I was the one who turned it into an attack. I was the one who fed the monster. Today, when something provokes me, I take a real pause. Sometimes I even say out loud, this is only an impression, not the fact itself. It sounds silly, but those 2 or 3 seconds of clarity prevent the hijacked emotion from grabbing the wheel, and it's in that pause that the manual opens. The second rule is for anger. I learned this from a story about Epictetus. One day, someone stole the oil lamp from his home. He didn't explode with rage. Instead, he performed a kind of moral balance sheet. He lost an object. The thief lost integrity. Who came out worse? He realized that the thief had paid a far heavier price, giving up a piece of his character for something cheap. I began using this logic immediately. Faced with that message, the real question was, who's paying more here? Me? Who might need to fix something? Or the person who had to act pretty just to feel important? Anger loses its power when you see that the other person is already punishing themselves. The last rule is for anxiety. To the Stoics, anxiety is a symptom. It appears when we try to control something that never belonged to us. So now, when I feel that knot in my stomach, I ask, what exactly am I wishing for that doesn't depend on me? The answer is almost always some future chapter of life, someone's approval, a specific outcome, the guarantee that everything will go perfectly. When I expose that desire to light, it shrinks. Anxiety reveals itself for what it truly is, not a giant monster, but a car alarm going off without reason. Annoying, but harmless. These tools didn't turn me into some enlightened sage. I still feel anger, I still get anxious, but now they don't drive my life. They are just warning lights on the dashboard, not the driver. I noticed something strange. The poison, when examined calmly, points directly to the antidote. Turning pain into clarity became part of the process, and the Stoics had known this all along, to look directly at death, fragility, discomfort, not to suffer, but to live better. Memento mori. We grew up in a culture that treats death like a system bug, programming error, something so forbidden that we can't even say its name without slipping into some dramatic detour. Rested, passed, went to a better place. It almost feels like superstition, as if saying the word died might bring bad luck. And of course, I spent years inside that bubble, avoiding cemeteries, dodging the topic, pretending that aging was just a matter of face cream and flattering lighting, until I discovered that some of the greatest thinkers in history not only spoke openly about death, they lived with it in plain sight. To them, ignoring death was as absurd as a mountaineer climbing Everest while pretending avalanches doesn't exist. They did the opposite. They consciously remembered their own finitude. Memento mori, remember that you are mortal. At first, it sounded like morbid to me, but the more I studied, the more I realized it was an exercise in clarity, a reality check that rearranges your whole life, and each Stoic had his own way of practicing it. Epictetus, for example, a man who had already lost everything, spoke of death as someone describing the weather. For him, dying wasn't a tragedy, just a return to the elements, like a drop returning to the ocean. No drama, no spectacle. A simple fact of nature. Then came Seneca, who lived surrounded by intrigue, betrayal, and danger. He said that all of life is a dress rehearsal for the final act, and that reflecting on your own death isn't pessimism, it's liberation. Because when you stop fearing the end, no one can manipulate you with threats anymore. Not a boss, not a critic, not a tyrant. Someone who accepts death becomes impossible to control. And then I found Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who commanded armies and continents. And even with all that power, he wrote to himself late at night reminders like, you could live life right now. Let that determine what you do and say what you think. He used the arrowness of death as a moral compass, filter to separate what truly matters from what is just noise. Over time, I realized these men weren't fascinated by death. They were fascinated by life. They just refused to sleepwalk through it. And adopting this perspective triggered 3 brutal side effects in my own life. First, procrastinating evaporated. That old line, one day I'll do it, loses all its charm once you understand you are not guaranteed a one day. Finitude creates a sense of urgency that no planner, no app, and no coach can manufacture. Second, my daily irritations shrank like magic. Mean comments, minor setbacks, awkward moments, all of it loses weight when compared to the magnitude of eternal silence. Death puts everything into proper scale. And third, my gratitude exploded. When you realize everything is temporary, every moment gains texture. That sip of coffee isn't just another coffee, it's this coffee. It will never exist again. I didn't tattoo schools, I didn't buy black candles, didn't become a monk. My practice is simple. Sometimes it's looking at someone I love and remembering that our time together is a privilege, with an expiration date. Sometimes it's feeling the morning breeze and recognizing that waking up one more day is a stroke of luck that millions didn't get. The Stoic taught me something that changes everything. The secret to living well isn't running from death, it's letting it walk beside you. Because only when you accept the end do you finally begin the beginning for real? Wealth, health, and success. There is a beautiful lie that almost everyone buys without ever reading the fine print. The belief that wealth, health, and success are the pillars of a well-lived life. It sounds so obvious that we rarely bother to question it. But running inside you, quietly, relentlessly, is a program. A mental software that chooses your goals, shapes your fears, and silently defines what you call your ideal life. And this code follows only 3 commands. Collect money, cause money supposedly guarantees safety and happiness. Gain status, because other people's approval is treated as proof of your growth. Protect your health, because it's framed as the ultimate untouchable good. This is the default operation system of modern culture. What if I told you this code is a well-designed hoax? That if the Stoics read it, they would call it existential malware, the root cause of your anxiety, your constant comparison, your chronic fear of losing control. The Stoics dissected human experience like severe auditors and reached a brutal conclusion. Most of what you desperately chase and most of you endlessly fear doesn't matter as much as you think. For them, there is only one true good, virtue, meaning a steady, honest, lucid character, and only one true evil, losing that. Everything else, salary, prestige, perfect health, a sculpted body, applause, is neutral. Not good, not bad, just scenery. Neutral, you might think. Of course, it's better to be healthy than sick. And the Stoics would agree. They never romanticized suffering. The difference is that they saw these things as preferable, not essential. We can want money and comfort. The mistake is treating them as if they were prerequisites for having value. That confusion is what makes us fragile. Imagine life as a game. It's always throwing things your way. Sometimes a golden ball, an unexpected opportunity, a relationship that booms, a project that succeeds. Other times a heavy one, a family illness, a financial crisis, a painful disappointment. The traditional script says winning the game means grabbing the golden ball and dodging the dark ones. The result? You live tense, braced for the next blow. The Stoic player plays a different game. They understand the balls are simply balls, circumstances. What is truly being evaluated is how you respond. Your composure, your courage, your wisdom in motion. Virtue lives in the gesture, not in the object. You can be a mediocre player holding a golden ball, using wealth to feed vanity and cruelty. Or you can be an extraordinary player holding a ball of lead, using hardship to become stronger, deeper, more just. How does this translate into real life? It means you should care for your health, but not collapse emotionally when your body falters. That you can chase success, but never let your self-worth be taken hostage by likes or job titles. That you can seek wealth, but never at the cost of your integrity. Money, recognition, vitality, they are tools, preferable, useful, convenient. But they are not the prize. The prize is how you become while you play. Everything else is scenery. Culture taught you to collect shiny trophies. The Stoics invite you to become an athlete of the soul, someone whose value doesn't rise and fall with the tides of this world. And in the end, when the game ends and you look back, what will matter more? The things you accumulated or the way you crossed the field? The only question that truly matters is this: are you training to have more or to be more?